So my name is Josh Weinberg. I'm the neighborhood administrator with the city's neighborhood services department. And we're a couple minutes over already, and we've got a tight schedule for you all today. We're going to have a series of speakers come and talk about a variety of topics this morning. So just kind of in between there, feel free to get up and do what you need to do. Well, then I will hand it over to Dylan Coldiron, our neighborhood services manager.
Good morning, everybody. Thank you for coming out on this cold, early morning to do landlord tenant training. We're happy to have you here. So who we are your neighborhood services department. There's about 17 of us. We are divided in about 5 different sections, which I'll talk to you a little bit about. We are here to help you in all kinds of ways, but generally anything that positively impacts your neighborhood. We are all about that. So we are set up into 5 groups, like I said. We have an administrative section that does all kinds of special projects. We have Josh works out of our administrative department. We do policy development in the administrative department, special projects, and all of our events that we have. We also do community mediation and restorative justice, and I'm going to talk just a little bit about that as part of my presentation today. But you will get a deeper dive into mediation right after our session, so I'm not going to spend a lot of time on that today. Development Review Liaison, we have a person in our office that spends her time guiding residents and tenants throughout the community through development review projects that are happening. So she's purposely not a part of planning because we want to have that unbiased approach that is able to assist residents and property owners in particular when it comes to these kinds of developments that are going on within your neighborhood. So we can help you with all of that. Community Liaison is a position that is half with the City of Fort Collins and half with Colorado State University. So we will touch on that just a little bit today, but her main focus is to help students learn how to be a good student and resident off campus, and to help residents kind of understand students as well. So that's what her primary focus is. And then we have code compliance, which is all of our nuisance violation enforcement and the related activities, and Eric is here to talk about that as part of our presentation this morning. All right, so we'll raise hands again. How many of you know which programs are part of neighborhood services? So Adopt a Neighbor, Community Connections, Homeowners Association Training, Neighborhood Night Out, Welcome Bags, all of the above. All of the above. And you're right. So these are all of the different programs that we have. Adopt a Neighbor program, many of you may be interested in, but if you have tenants in particular that are elderly or disabled and they need help with things like snow shoveling, things like that they can't get to, we have a program where they're able to call in and actually register with us, and then we help find volunteers in their area that are able to help them with that. So that kind of is a way to manage the snow removal requirements and other things that we have on properties. So if you need that ever, give us a call and we can help you with that. We have other neighborhood grants. We'll talk more about that. We have welcome bags. I don't know if anybody have heard of that before, but you can actually come into our department for new people that are moving in. We give you a bag of information that's specific to the City of Fort Collins, codes, policies, just fun stuff, brochures, what we're about. We give them some chocolate chip cookies so that they're able to bake some chocolate chip cookies, and the whole idea is to go meet your neighbor and to start those connections. So that is available. It's free, so people can come and do that with us. And then again, really anything that gets neighbors interacting in positive ways, that's what we're trying to do with neighborhood services. So Neighborhood Night Out is an event that happens on the first Tuesday of August. It's actually a nationwide kind of event. And these are events that we do throughout the city. There's bags and goodies that are associated with that as well. For any event that you have, you just need to register with us at Neighborhood Services. We can give you the information and other things. Most people have barbecues or block parties or those kinds of things. Again, just a way to get out in the community, get engaged, get connected, those kinds of things. So we would encourage you to do that. We would encourage you to do that with your tenants, or for you to get your tenants involved in that as well. It's just a great way to get out in your community and start making those connections. So these are just some examples. Our police and fire are oftentimes going through and visiting various events as well. The kids always like to see that, so they're out there helping as well. So as far as participants, we usually have about 5,000 participants in those events, and we usually have over 100 events per year when we do these. Neighborhood Grants is another program that we have. This is available for people with property owners for money up to $500. It can be used for various reasons, but a lot of them can be. We have 3 rounds of grants. The first round's already closed. The second round of grants is actually for neighborhood night events, and we specifically use it for that. So people can get money to put towards their events that they're going to hold as part of Neighborhood Night Out. And then there's other things like neighborhood cleanups, beautification, that kind of thing. So if you're ever interested in that for your properties, or your tenants are asking you questions about that, you can contact us for more information. So you are at the landlord tenant training. These are some of the things that you're going to be listening to over the next couple weeks. But part of the services that we provide is a lot of education and outreach in various ways, and this is just one of the ways that we do that. We also do neighborhood meetings throughout the year, whether it's just to meet with neighborhoods or whether there's issues going on with neighborhoods. We will set those up and help you with those issues. We have HOA sessions that happen about 6 times per year. These are the sessions that are still left this year. So if you're part of an HOA and you're interested in any of that, again, talk to us at Neighborhood Services. We can help you get set up for those. I like it when Josh isn't here because I always say, if you're having a problem in your neighborhood, call Josh. So this is really it. If you have ongoing issues in your neighborhood primarily, if you have tenants that need resources or you need resources and you'd like some help, if you have issues that are just beyond the scope of your property, you feel like it's more of a neighborhood issue, give us a call because we're happy. We have a lot of resources that we can help hook people up to, and we're happy to help you however we can. So if that's meeting, if it's through mediation, if it's through other resources outside of the city, we can help you with all of that. So just give us a call and let us know that. Community mediation is a free program that we provide to residents within the city. It does have to be, they have to be in the city. So this is not available for people outside of the city of Fort Collins. So that's one note to make. It's free. Both parties have to be interested in doing it, and I'm not going to say a lot about it because that's kind of your next session. So, but we do have that as a service that's available through our office. Restorative justice is a combined service with the mediation program. This helps the youth within our community have an alternative to actually a jail sentence or something like that. So we're, with certain kinds of violations, able to walk them through an alternative solution. I bring this up to you because a lot of times when we're doing the restorative circles and different things, we do ask for participation from business owners. It could be a rental property owner. It could be somebody who was involved in that. So it could be your tenant, and have them actually come and be a part of that restorative process, talking to the young person about how it impacted their community and then those that were involved. So it's been a really good program for us and a nice alternative. So we do it for shoplifting offenses, but we also do it for all of the other offenses that you see there. So theft, mischief, trespassing, harassment, assault, all of those can be part of our restorative justice programming. Town-gown relations is the relationship that the city has with CSU. Again, this goes back to the Community Liaison program. Emily is her name, and she spends half of her time with the city of Fort Collins and half of her time with CSU. Again, her real focus is trying to promote positive relationships between students, really helping them understand how to move off campus and become a positive part of the community that they're moving into, and then giving residents a perspective of, not every student is just the party head or going to cause you a lot of problems. So trying to build those relationships, trying to build those connections and those kinds of things. These are just a sample of the program. So she's involved in a lot of education and outreach that they do as part of this programming. So this just gives you an example of some of the campaigns and some of the classes that they teach, and it's just ongoing throughout the year. Take a while to get all the things done. All right, back to the development review liaison position. So again, this is to guide residents through development proposals that are occurring. Have any of you seen the yellow signs posted around the community? Those yellow signs are the development review programs or projects that are underway. So if you have questions about what's going on, if you have concerns about the development that's being proposed in that area, if you just want more information, give us a call. Sarah can help you with that, and we can kind of walk you through that process. If you want to get involved, if you want to go to the Planning and Zoning Board, if you want to go to City Council about those programs, and the projects that have been proposed, we can help you with that. So just give us a call and we can guide you in the right direction. So if you have questions about a developer's proposal, you can do all of those things. You can talk to us, you can talk to the planning department, you can reach out to city council. There are many avenues for you to be able to participate and have a voice in that process. So Neighborhood Connections is a new initiative that we're working on, and we are trying to, so what we've kind of found in our studies is that interpersonal connections have been broken and kind of declined over several years. And there's a variety of reasons. You know, technology is part of that. Our busy lives are part of that. People not getting together in ways that they used to, so Rotary clubs and those kinds of things, you know, have kind of fallen by the wayside a little bit. And so what they're saying is that people that are not connected to their communities, it impacts their health and their well-being, actually. And so that equals a decline in your community. So this was followed by a book written by Peter Kageyama, which is For the Love of Cities. And what he talks about is that people that are engaged and connected in their cities create places that people want to be and a place that people love and want to be a part of. So he talks about a place that people, you know, if somebody loves something, they will take care of it, you know, and they will really revel in it and they will want to protect it and keep it safe. And people that feel loved flourish, and they want to be engaged, and they want to be a part of something. So this initiative is actually to formalize more structures within neighborhoods. Its whole purpose is to build that community, to build that engagement, to have a structure in place to really give neighborhoods more voice, more help, more support, more connection, and all of the above to start building those relationships within our community. So we'd like, you know, residents to be connected within their neighborhoods. We'd like neighborhoods to be connected with other neighborhoods so that they can work jointly on issues that are throughout the community. And then we want neighborhoods and residents to be able to understand that they can connect well with the city government and that we're able to work with you and help you and provide services and resources that you need. So we just went to City Council on this. We just got the go-ahead to go ahead and start piloting this program. Josh is working hard on that in the back. And so we will start some pilots this June, and so you will see more information as we continue to roll out this new initiative. But if you have questions or want to get involved, just give us a call and we can give you more information on this initiative. And with that, I'm going to shut up and turn it over to Eric.
Hey, good morning. I'm Eric Kussberg. I work in code compliance. What we enforce on is the nuisance and quality of life issues in the neighborhoods just to maintain that neighborhood livability. We currently have 4 nuisance inspectors, primarily, and then 1 occupancy inspector, which you'll hear about on your next session. So these are some of the common ordinances that we enforce on. Some are seasonal, of course, like weeds and grasses that are starting to pop up and turn green now. We also, in the winter, of course, deal with sidewalk snow removal, which we also may be dealing with this weekend as well. So some of them are more common than others. Rubbish is trash, trash bags, you know, branch piles and that kind of stuff. Outdoor storage of materials, that's any item that's not customarily stored in a residential area, a stack of tires, that kind of stuff. Parking in yards, you have to park on an improved surface with any organic material. Inoperable motor vehicles, the big kicker is that it has to be currently registered in your driveway on private property. I know police often says move it to your driveway and you're good to go from the street, but you still have to meet the requirements of being an inoperable motor vehicle. Unscreened trash containers, that's a big one that we get a lot of calls back on. It's one that we primarily enforce on a complaint basis, but they have to be screened from view with the exception of 12 hours before trash collection. Hours collection, that doesn't really affect you guys. It's more when the trash carriers can be on your residential streets.
Sorry, what's unscreened?
Your trash cans have to be screened from view. Yep. So with the exception of 12 hours before trash collection. The question was, what is an unscreened trash container? So the question was, does it have to be or not be visible from the public right-of-way? So your trash cans can't be visible from any public right-of-way. And when we say screening, it means behind a fence, behind dense vegetation, in your garage, that kind of stuff. The alley is not a public street.
It is.
Correct, yeah. Well, the city has our ordinances, and the HOA can be more restrictive than the city ordinances. So it's a violation by city ordinance. We just will do our patrol and find that violation. But if the HOA has something that's more restrictive than the city ordinances, then that'd be incumbent on the HOA to send that notification. Campers parked on the street fall under the Fort Collins traffic code. So that would be with the police department or parking services. We handle stuff on private property. Wood smoke, Some of these are kind of arbitrary, and we do them when we get complaints. Wood smoke, camping on private property, dirt yards, dilapidated fences, beekeeping. That's stuff that we do enforce on, but they're not some of the primary ones that we readily look for. Noise disturbance, unlike police who enforce on unreasonable noise, what we enforce on is amplified sound, construction noise, industrial noise. We use a decimeter to measure that volume. Right-of-way encroachment, we enforce on for the engineering department. That's the portable basketball hoops, landscape material in the gutter pan, roll-off dumpsters that someone has on the property. Forestry encroachment, we enforce for the forestry department. And then also occupancy limits, again, that's in our department, and you'll hear about that next week. To expand on forestry, we should have some examples, but the bushes or trees can't encroach on the plane of the sidewalk or the street, so it has to be even with the imaginary plane, 8 foot overhead of the sidewalk and then 14 foot overhead of the street. So our process, and I will put the caveat, we are code compliance, not code enforcement. Our first step is not the hammer to take action. Our first step is to send notification, respond to your questions, give you guidance, time to correct, and get some opportunity so that we get cooperation between us, not just go right to the enforcement tool. So kind of how our process works, we do primarily proactive enforcement. That's us just driving out, grading the whole city, driving every street, every neighborhood, and about 85% of our cases that we generate minus snow is us just looking for violations. We also take complaints through letters, phone calls, access for calls, which is on the website. If you have a complaint that we haven't gotten to, just let us know, and what it does is pushes it to the top of the list. So we respond within 24 hours versus waiting for our normal rotation, which currently is about 6 to 8 weeks to get from point A through our grid back to point A. So when we do receive, or we do find a violation, we send a violation notice, and that's to the property itself, any property owner, any property management company. So we try to notify all vested persons of that property to give them a chance to correct. The one exception to that is snow. So following the 24 hours after snow accumulation and that snowfall and or wind drifts, we'll post a property only with a pink notice. So if you see this gives them till 8 o'clock the next morning to clear their sidewalk, and we only do this once per snow season. So the second snow, third snow, if they don't do it, we just send it right to the contractor if we find a violation. So property owners won't see this, but the tenants will. There's some arterial streets, the question is shields. Some arterial streets, the streets department will handle the sidewalks that their plows will cover when they come through. Okay. Well, there's no enforcement post 20 or in that 24-hour period. We only do enforcement after that 24-hour period. But if the streets department, and I'll have to check a map, so if you contact us, I'll let you know for sure. But if it's outside the 24-hour period and it's something that streets handles, we don't enforce on it because we know that they're coming through after they finish. And on that note, if you guys do shovel a sidewalk and the streets department does come back by and recover it, just call them and they have a crew that will come back and undo what they did with their snowplows. All right, so following the timeline to correct, and most ordinances it's 7 days. So on the 8th day, we'll do a reinspection. Some exceptions to that is inoperable motor vehicles. That's 30 days to correct, forestry, and then right-of-way encroachment. But following that timeline to correct, we'll come back by the property. And if it's corrected, that's fantastic. We move on. If it's not corrected, we'll post the property with this notice, which gives them 1 additional day to correct. Again, this is posted on the property. There's no notification to the property owner, only to the tenants that are there. This gives them 1 additional day, and this has been really effective to gain that voluntary compliance. This gives them 1 additional day to correct. The question was, if you're restoring a vehicle and you bring it out, work on it, put it back, so it's an ongoing project. And that's something that the inspectors try to determine on-site, so we have a lot of discretion in our disposal. And so if we see an active project going on, I mean, not just vehicles, but landscaping, if they're mowing, if they're cutting branches, we won't just see a branch pile and automatically send a notice. We look for the color of the stalks to see how long they've been there. But yeah, you can work on your vehicles. It's just a matter of if they're long-term, if they're not, anything's being done, if they sit and they're stagnant with no work being done. But we do use discretion when we go by, and if we see, toolboxes and you guys are actively doing something with the project, we'll wait for a following rotation to make sure that something's being done with it. Well, what we look for is appearance of operable. So current registration, flat tires, wrecked or damaged. So there's some indicators that the code lists out that we look for. And again, if we drive by once and it's a flat tire, we'll give the benefit of the doubt that it just occurred, and we'll wait for the second rotation. So we don't jump on certain things too quickly, but in expired plate, you'll receive notice on that pretty quick. Did you have a question? Yes, and we'll get to that. Yeah, the question was on grass, but we're a couple slides ahead. But yes, absolutely. So following the reinspection, if it's corrected, we move on. If it's not corrected, we'll either issue a citation or get the property abated. So the abatement process is for items that have no value. So grass, length of grass, rubbish, snow, branch piles, anything that doesn't have value, we'll abate. That means we'll remove it with our contractors. If it has value, if there's a refrigerator out, a stack of tires, that kind of stuff, then we'll issue a civil citation for failing to comply. But again, if any time during this process you have a question, we have our number on the bottom of the notification. Just call us and we can help explain, clarify, work with you on time to correct it and offer some solutions. The property owner is the one responsible for violations, correct? But we do have over a 95% compliance rate. So of every 100 notices, we only have to take action on less than 5 of them. And that mostly is against snow removal and weeds and stuff like that. So we're getting into the weeds now. So what's the maximum height the lawn can be without violating city code? And I will ask for hands. So A, 3 inches. B, 6 inches. C, 9 inches. And then D, only weeds have a height limit. So the answer is 6 inches in residential area, and the ordinance doesn't specify if it has to be weeds or if it has to be grasses. It can be full of weeds as long as it's not over that 6-inch threshold. But in residential areas, it can't be higher than 6 inches, which you see on the upper left picture. And then undeveloped lots, they can be up to 12 inches, even on the little boulevard section. That has to be down to that 12-inch threshold. And we want some grass for water erosion control. Thank you, Dylan, for that. So the caveat being noxious weeds can't be any height. So if you have a Scotch thistle, myrtle spurge, any of the ones on the county list or the state list, they can't be any height on the property. But weeds and grasses can be up to 6 inches on residential areas. Well, plants and wooded vegetation, the different stalks. I mean, if it's a bush or a plant, then that's different than weeds and grasses, which is also different than the noxious weeds. So we'll go out if you want to get with. I'll get you my card after this too, and we can meet and discuss if there's a violation occurring or not. Well, so the question is, do we measure the length of grasses before we send notice? But the answer is no. What we do is we err on the side of caution. So we're not going to write up a weed that appears to be 6.5 inches, but we'll have it be long enough to have some aesthetics or some health and safety issues, like on the right picture. But we don't go out and measure, but we do err on the side of the citizen. So how long after it stops snowing do you have to shovel the sidewalk? So A, 24 hours? B, 48 hours? There is no time limit? Or only with 2 or more inches of snow? So correct, 24 hours after accumulation. And again, that's snowfall and or like wind drifts. So anytime it gets windy and you already cleared it and there's a wind drift across your sidewalk, you're required to shovel that as well. Any accumulation, correct.
So an inch of snow, you have to
It has,
shovel it.
yeah, so any accumulation has to be safe for pedestrian travel. No, it's been that way for some time. But again, this is where we use the level of discretion to err on the side of the citizen. If it's a light skiffing and it's going to be a 60-degree day, it'll melt before it even becomes an issue. So here's an example. You see the time to correct was 9 minutes, and the total abatement cost for this property is $50.90. So it benefits having the tenants to shovel the sidewalks as long as they know, and again, they get this first notice once per year. So a 9-minute job cost $52, so shovel your sidewalks. So the city restricts all indoor upholstered furniture in outdoor spaces, including all furniture that is visible to neighbors and passerbys. True? Anyone think it's false? Okay, the answer is true. You can't have furniture manufactured for indoor use stored outdoors. So we have 3 pictures here. These are all violation. It's an unenclosed porch with a couch on them. And this is not including the abandoned furniture at the move in, move out period of time at the CSU. So you just can't have any indoor furniture stored outdoors. So a couple sample violations. Upper left, parking on yards. The 2 cars, actually, this has been improved. You can't improve your whole front yard unless there's no off-street parking. But then if you look here, this car is just parking on the area adjacent to the property without being an improved surface. It has to be inorganic, rock-based, concrete, that kind of stuff. So more examples. Upper left, you have some construction debris. It has to be stored in a roll-off dumpster and then hauled off when it gets full. They're just stored in the driveway. This was just someone that decided to use the side of the property for household trash and disposal areas. This is a good example of forestry encroachment. This bush on the bottom right, you can't safely pass on the sidewalk there, so we'll come in and have them trim that back to even with the plane of the sidewalk. And then the bottom left, that's trash that's open for harborage for rodents and this kind of grows. So those are all easy violations to write up. So the one occupancy question is a precursor to next week's training. So how many people can occupy a dwelling unit? A, as many as there are bedrooms available. B, unlimited. C, a family plus one or three non-related occupants. Or D, limits according to rental registration. Correct. You can have the U plus two is the common acronym. It's you, your dependents, one additional, their dependents, and then one additional roommate, or a family of any size plus one additional. And you hear more about occupancy next week. The HOA shovels, so the question was HOAs shovel, but they'd only, in their contract, only shovel up to when it's 3 inches accumulation. So is the sidewalk in front of your house your property or HOA property? So we do send notifications to HOAs for failure to shovel on their, like the open area of the green land and that kind of stuff. If it's your property that the HOA is required to do and we send you a notice, we would bill you, but then that'd be a civil issue between your HOA, because we hold the property owner adjacent to the sidewalk responsible, depending on ownership, and it could be the HOA or it could be you. So if that's the case and you get the notice, make sure you call your HOA before our contractors show up. We used to, up until January of this year, we used to only be reactive to forestry because it's a service we provide to the forestry department, unless it's egregious or a safety issue. If we do see any regulatory sign being blocked, we will address it or let the forestry department know about it. If there are some that we're not seeing, just let our office know and we can send an inspector out to take a look. And if it's the property owner's responsibility, we'll send the notice. If it's forestry, then they'll take care of those quick. Those are two. We do enforce on wood smoke, which is chimneys. When you light off your chimney, you only have a certain period of time before the opacity has to be within 20%. So if it's just churning black smoke, then that's a violation. So you have a 15-minute runoff rule before it has to be down to that opacity level. And that's one of those odd ones. And Justin's going to smoke school here in a couple of weeks because it's one of those odd ones that in the last 6 years I've done 2 total. So it's those arbitrary ones that we do on occasion, but we have to be trained on them always. Yeah. And then beekeeping, there's an ordinance. It's the one animal ordinance that we enforce on. And we don't know that there's beehives in someone's backyard until a neighbor calls and says these bees are doing whatever. So we'll go do an inspection with the beekeeper to make sure they have the right water source, the right flyaway zone, the right kind of length trough thing, you know. So the first inspection I did for beekeeping, I was going straight off the ordinance, and I spent an hour and a half in the beekeeper's backyard, and I learned a whole lot more from what he had to share with me. So every inspection after that was easy. If they're city-owned property, they're on a rotation too. The question was detention ponds and who was responsible to maintain those. If they're long, I mean, they're on a rotation to see, but if they get long enough, we'll call the stormwater department and say, you got to get over to this one and make sure it's mowed down. But they do have a rotation. Sometimes it gets, I mean.
Over 6 inches.
Well, on a detention pond, it could be 12 inches.
No, I mean.
Well, it'd be the adjacent property owner, so that boulevard, that strip of grass between.
Property owner, it's next to the detention pond.
Well, the detention pond would, if it's a city-owned property, then they'll come out and mow it. But if it's not, whoever owns the detention pond will find that ownership and let them know. Well, HOAs can be more restrictive than the city ordinance. So, like a good example is RVs. We don't mind if RVs are stored on the driveway on any residential street, where HOAs may have covenants that restrict the stowage of RVs within that neighborhood. So we can only enforce on our ordinances, but if you don't allow chickens, then they wouldn't exist, so we wouldn't have any enforcement power, but the HOA would have to be responsible for that. You can be more restrictive. Correct, you can't be less restrictive. Just like the county has ordinance, so we can be more restrictive, but we can't be less restrictive. So it trickles down, state, county, city, HOAs. All right, you guys have been awesome. Thanks for asking the question. That helps me too. So the question is graffiti. We do have a graffiti hotline that you can call and let them know, and they'll come out and take care of it.
They're good.
They are good. Nick, he's a good guy over there, yeah. If you call the graffiti hotline and it's not theirs, then they'll contact the right party, yeah. We don't enforce on chickens, it's animal control. So I'd reference that question to the Limerick County Humane Society. The chickens are enforced through animal control, Larimer County Humane Society Animal Control.
All right, so I wanted to follow up on a couple of those. So animal control, Neighborhood Services actually does manage the contract as part of animal control. So they work with us and collaborate with us. But as far as those kind of specifics, they would handle it. So they would handle any registration or enforcement when it came to chickens. And then I wanted to get back to the wood smoke. I just wanted to let you know that there's an initiative underway. So we're collaborating with the Environmental Services Department, and they've asked us to start looking at outdoor burning in particular. And so they're going to be doing some studies on, because a lot of times people will be burning trash or burning, other things. And so they're going to be looking at kind of what violations are occurring right now with outdoor burning, what stuff's not covered under ordinance right now, and see if that we need to make any adjustments there. So that's an initiative that's going to be going on in the next few months here. Yeah, Eric, do you have more information on outdoor fireplaces, outdoor pits, and when they're allowed?
So PFA currently handles the fire pits and outdoor burning and that kind of stuff, and a fire pit or an outdoor burning area. We would go out and look, and if they're burning trash and that kind of stuff, then we would address it. But for outdoor burning itself, that's through the fire department.
All right, how many people know about the public nuisance ordinance? Anybody familiar with that? A little bit? So the public nuisance ordinance was enacted a few years ago, and it was to get at chronic properties that we are having to go back to multiple times, or police are having to respond to multiple times. It really was a way to get at those properties that are really becoming huge nuisances within a neighborhood. And so it can be a variety of reasons. So any of the violations that we talked about this morning can lead to a public nuisance ordinance violation, as well as noise and nuisance gathering things. So when you have parties and they end up with tickets, and anything that is on here has to have gone to a ticket. So if you just received a notice and people complied and that happened, that's not going to be part of a P&O action. So it has to be bad enough that you are actually ticketed for it. So this, the rule is if you get 2 of the same violations within any 6-month period, then we can start a public nuisance action against the property. If you receive 3 of any kind of violation within a 12-month period, that will start a public nuisance violation. Again, you have to get tickets, not just notices. And then if you receive 5 tickets within any 24-month period for any mix of violations, that can start a public nuisance ordinance violation. Yeah, the question is that sent to the homeowner? So yes, it would be the homeowner. I'm sorry? They would too. So we would notify, just like we do with others, the tenants, the property managers, and the property owners that are a part of that. So everybody would get a notice. So it's a civil violation, and so generally what would happen is that the municipal judge would tell the property owner, you just have to get rid of the situation. That's what they want you to do. Typically, that ends up being an eviction of some type to get rid of the problem. We honestly haven't seen one go that far. So we've started P&O actions, but they've never gone so far as to have to get a municipal judge to rule on a property. So we just like to give you this information. The other thing about this is that these violations stay with the property. They do not go with the person that was in the property. So they don't go with the tenant that may be a part of that property. So that's another thing to remember. So if you have one tenant that got a couple violations, you have a new tenant that moves in and they get a violation, you could be subject to P&O because of that. So when we know that there's been a shift in people with the properties, we try to work with you on that. But but if we have a property that's just been chronic and it's just problem after problem, then we may not be as lenient to work with you on P&O process. How long does it stay? Until it clears one of these time frames. So if you got issued a ticket, we go back and look at other tickets. So if you're within any of those time frames that I talked about, then it would kick in. But if you're past like the 24-month period and you get another one, then it starts over again. Yeah, so the police are actually the ones that enforce on that kind of noise, and they come out and they do, they look at it on whether or not the noise is unreasonable. So they take into account the time, what's going on, is it in the middle of the afternoon, is it in the evening, how far away can you hear it, is it really disruptive? They will look at all of those kinds of things. They can issue a ticket, and it's a criminal violation, so it's actually criminal. So the question is, does that count against P&O? It does. It counts against P&O. So the question is, what about pets and those violations? And if somebody has 45 cats, what do we do? Animal control has, there's limits, and they will take care of that. That's not going to be part of a P&O, though. While we're here, I might just let you know that if you are having problems with tenants with parties and that kind of stuff, we do have a party registration program that people can register for. If they're students at CSU, they can actually register their parties at CSU. Generally, it's for weekend parties only, but we have 5 holidays throughout the year that they can also register for, and I think they're New Year's, St. Patrick's Day, Halloween is a big one, July 4th, and there's another one. I don't remember exactly which one that is. No, I don't think it's homecoming, so, right. So what that does, and if they're not CSU students, then they can register in our office with Neighborhood Services. And what that does is we register them. They have to give us a contact person that's going to be the contact person for that party. If we get noise complaints, then the police will call that person, and they give them 20 minutes to get that party shut down before they issue any violations. So it's actually really good for them, and it's really good for property owners in that case. So you can encourage tenants to get their parties registered that way. We're not trying to get people to quit having parties, but we want them to do it reasonably and not disturb the neighbors and not become a nuisance in the neighborhood and not get you guys violation notices. So it has been, I believe there's a 95% success rate in the parties that have been registered did not receive any kind of tickets or violations. So it's been a really good program. The caveat to that is that if they do get a violation, then they cannot register another party for 6 months. And then if something else occurs, then it goes out a year. So they're pretty strict with what you can do with that. So that was a complement of students that had notified property owners and neighbors beforehand when they were going to have a party, and then had parties that did not create any kind of problems or nuisance. And that gets back to making those connections with your neighbors, because oftentimes, if you just move in and you're that student or you're that whatever, that somebody believes you to be, they look at you through that filter of what's occurred in the past, right? So if you had problem students in the past or you had problem neighbors in the past, then you kind of get tagged with that filter until they get to know you as a person. So that's one of the things that we do with students as part of the programming is teach them, go get to know your neighbor, have them know you as a person and know your face and not know you as just that problem student or something that's in the neighborhood. So it gets back to that making connections and having people know you. Thanks for sharing that. That was great. Okay, so I've got about 5 minutes left. I'm going to quickly get through a couple of these other things here. I don't know how many people are familiar with the city's no smoking ordinance. City has a pretty strict smoking ordinance. There is, last year, there were more restrictions that were passed as part of that. So as far as the city properties go, there is no smoking on natural areas, trails, parks, nothing around city properties or related areas, so parking lots, those kinds of things. Special events this year are supposed to be smoke-free, so we're going to be looking more at those kinds of things. How this relates to you is if there is a natural area near your property somewhere and you have residents or tenants that are down smoking in that area, that could end up being a violation. And believe it or not, it's a criminal violation for smoking, so it's not civil. So if you have that going on, and we do, I have several complaints that I've received for people down smoking in the natural areas and in the drainage areas. So that could impact you if you have that around your property. So we also implemented a downtown smoke-free zone. So if you have any properties that are within this area, there's probably not a lot of them, but this entire area is smoke-free as far as commercial stuff goes. The caveats to that is a lot of the residential pieces, a lot of the residential properties are exempt to that. So we don't regulate on your residential property unless it's multifamily of some kind. If it's multifamily, we can regulate smoking restrictions if it's in common areas, and especially if those common areas are enclosed. So we're not really going to go look at the outdoor pool area, but if people are smoking close to the clubhouse or inside the clubhouse, then we can come look at that and regulate that. So if you've got that kind of situation going on in your area. So if you don't allow smoking on your properties and you want help with signage or anything like that, we can help you with that. So give us a call and we'd be happy to participate with you in that way. So the question for those of you that didn't hear it is, residential property, people can't smoke inside the house in a rental situation, but they're smoking outside, and what can we do about that? So we cannot do anything to enforce that because it's on residential property again. And it's outdoors, it's not enclosed. And if it's single family, we wouldn't enforce that anyway. So what we would encourage you to do there is to take advantage of our mediation program and see if there's any kinds of help that we can provide you with having conversations there. Okay, marijuana. I don't know how many people, so it's allowed in certain situations in residentials. I don't know if you want to allow it in your rental or not. That's completely up to you. These are the times when it might be okay. I really wanted to show you that if you're having trouble with marijuana and that kind of, we do have police services, the non-emergency number that you can contact, and they can help you more with that issue. Anybody had trouble with marijuana on your properties or anything yet? Growing in the basement? Yeah. So that was, for those of you that didn't hear, she actually had somebody growing in her basement and was unable to get the help that she needed. So we can work on that. If you find that happens, give us a call to see if we can step in and help you in any way. Okay, one last thing that I have for you is a new law that was just recently passed by City Council. This is social host. And with social host, this holds a host responsible if they're allowing underage consumption to occur at their property. It can be alcohol or marijuana. Underage consumption at the premises that they have control of and that they're present at. So this is not attached to P&O. It would not come back to the property owner unless you're the one that is at the premises and you have control of it and you're allowing that to occur on your property. So if it's a tenant, your tenant is the one that would be responsible for that and that would get a ticket. It's new. There are times when it would not apply. So if a parent has given their child consent to drink and it's on their property, that's not covered by social host. If they have valid medical reasons and they have the medical registration card for marijuana, then we don't enforce on that. Sometimes a student might be involved in like a culinary program or something like that where they'd be under the supervision of an instructor, so it would not count in that case. Religious purposes for communion and that kind of thing, and if somebody was part of a supervised and valid police investigation. So those are the times when it would not be covered by the social host ordinance. So these are the various ways that we can respond to parties. So there's noise and nuisance gathering like we talked about. This was really the area that we had no tool that we were able to use in the case of underage consumption. So this was anytime there was a party being hosted at a premise. The host was not the person providing the alcohol, so the alcohol or marijuana was being brought to the party, but the consumption was still going on. We didn't have a tool to be able to deal with that because the host wasn't personally giving the underage people the alcohol or marijuana. Now we can cover that under social host. So social host is a civil violation versus a criminal violation, so it also gives us a little bit softer response that we can use because everything else has been criminal. So this just recently occurred last week, but I wanted to make you aware of it. Special projects and partnerships we've talked a lot about, so that's just some of the other things that we get involved with. Yes, yes, you can. The question was, can you write no marijuana grow into your lease? Yes, you can do that. Yeah, it's my understanding. I mean, with all the smoking regulations that we do with Fort Collins, it includes cigarettes, marijuana, and vapor in all of those restrictions. So you should be able to do that. The only question I would say is to get maybe some legal counsel on whether or not somebody has medical marijuana needs and they have that valid card. That, oh, right, that may be a legal requirement that you'd need to navigate and get some guidance on. That's a really good question, and I don't have the answer to that, but one of your sessions is going to have a police officer here, so that would be a great question for her. The question was, there's a lot of other ways that marijuana can be consumed, so, through edibles and different things like that, and if can you ban that as well? And I can't answer that question, so I apologize. Well, thank you so much for your time. We really appreciate you being here, and we hope that you enjoy the rest of your class and that you find it very useful. So thanks a bunch.